It's similar to a garbage can, a paper towel, and 5 minutes, I can assure you. You only need that. After 10 days, you harvest greens that are 40 times more nutrient dense than anything I've ever discovered in my refrigerator. It doesn't need soil, a garden, or even direct sunlight. In fact, NASA is already cultivating it on the International Space Station. Additionally, a chemical present in these small leaves may reduce your risk of cancer by half, according to research from Johns Hopkins University. They cost $50 per pound at restaurants. However, I can assure you that for the cost of a seed packet, you can grow an infinite number. The fact that so few people do this at home can be explained by two factors. One is a cultural misconception regarding agriculture. The other is a business that makes money off of your perception that fresh food needs a lot of land, specific seasons, and intricate supply lines. I'll demonstrate the precise 5-minute setup that transforms any container into a nutrient factory at the end of this video. First, though, we must all comprehend what was concealed in these small leaves and why it took the US government more than 10 years to inform us of this. At Forbidden Roots, we have thoroughly investigated numerous sources. I always thought there had to be a better way when I stood in the grocery store looking at wilting vegetables that had traveled thousands of miles. You're going to learn something that will fundamentally alter your perspective on food. There is a class of plants that are so nutrient-dense, so ridiculously simple to cultivate, and so fast to harvest that they make everything else in contemporary agriculture seem ridiculous. We refer to them as microgreens. One of the most bizarre tales I've ever heard is how they went from being a chef's secret to a NASA research priority and the most secretive home-growing technique in the West. It gets extremely strange at this point. A chef made a mistake in the kitchen of one of San Francisco's most renowned restaurants in 1982 that would subtly alter people's perceptions of veggies. In order to adorn the plates of one of the best dining rooms in the city, Craig Hartman, who worked at the storied Cliff House, had asked his local vendor to provide baby greens' tiny, delicate leaves. However, there was a miscommunication. It wasn't baby greens that showed up. Sprouts were what showed up. Each of these tiny, barely 2-centimeter tall plants is a miniature representation of the vegetable it would have developed into. The leaves were smaller than a fingernail, and the stems were as thin as threads. They would have been sent back by most quivers. Instead, Hartman tried one. He was completely taken aback by the powerful, pungent taste. An entire, fully developed radish was less spicy than a single micro-radish leaf. A large sprig of the adult plant lacked the flavor of a little basil seedling. The vegetable's flavor seemed to have been squashed into the shape of a fingernail. Hartman cut it short right away. That wasn't an error. It was a revelation. In a few weeks, he began using the small greens as a garnish on every dish that came out of his kitchen. Visitors took note. Something on those dishes tasted more lively than anything they had previously eaten. Yet they were unable to pinpoint exactly what was different. Word quickly traveled throughout the culinary industry. Chefs in California were begging for these enigmatic tiny plants by the middle of the 1980s. The lady who co-founded the farm-to-table movement, Alice Waters of Berkeley's Chez Panisse, started experimenting with them. Back then, no one had a suitable term for it. They were merely referred to as microgreens. In the mid-1990s, Southern California producers started producing commercially. Arugula, basil, beets, kale, cilantro, and a vibrant blend known as rainbow mix were the only kind available initially. They were stunning. They were adored by chefs. Unaware of the reason, guests paid exorbitant pricing. Here's the thing, though. We all believed that microgreens are purely decorative. A lovely garnish, a pop of color on an expensive plate throughout the first 20 years of their existence. The obvious inquiry, what is actually in these tiny leaves, went unanswered. This question remained unanswered until 2012, when the USDA decided to find out. And what they found would have been headline news in a rational world. Researchers at the University of Maryland and the USDA designed an experiment that, in retrospect, seems almost comically simple. They bought 25 commercially grown varieties of microgreens, including red cabbage, cilantro, amaranth, daikon, radish, celery, arugula, and 24 others. Then they measured the vitamins and antioxidants in these tiny seedlings and compared them with data for mature plants. The results were published in August 2012 Inches, the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry. They should have changed everything. Microgreen cotyledons. These first tiny leaves that appear during germination have a dramatically higher nutrient density than the mature leaves of the same species. Not just a little higher or modestly higher. The concentration was 4 to 40 times higher. Let me repeat that, because it sounds made up. A 10-day-old red cabbage sprout contains 6 times more vitamin E than a full-grown head of red cabbage. The same tiny red cabbage sprout had 6 times as much vitamin C as its adult counterpart and 69 times more vitamin K. Coriander microgreens had the highest concentration of carotenoids, antioxidants that protect your eyes and combat cell damage. Dawn Redig microgreens had the highest vitamin E levels of all the varieties tested. Garnet amaranth topped the list for vitamin K. 4 of the 25 varieties had vitamin K levels comparable to mature spinach, which is considered the gold standard by many. 18 of the 25 had vitamin K densities as high or higher than broccoli. And this was no fringe study from an obscure lab. Indeed, the U.S. Department of Agriculture and a major research university published in one of the most prestigious scientific journals in the world. The researchers themselves seemed surprised, also noting that pea shoots that grew in complete darkness exhibited significantly lower vitamin levels. Plants exposed to light had dramatically higher nutrient levels. The light was the trigger. It activated something in the seedling that the darkness could not. That means for us, the simple act of moving your tray from darkness to light, which only takes 3 seconds, is the switch that transforms an ordinary sprout into a powerhouse. 3 seconds of work for 40 times more vitamins. That's incredible, I think. This study was published, it briefly attracted attention, and then almost completely disappeared from public discourse. No food company adjusted its products. No government nutrition program recommended microgreens. The most important nutritional discovery of the decade went almost unheard. But the research did not stop. It accelerated, and the next discovery was even bigger. At Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, a pharmacologist named Paul Teller had been doing something unusual since the late 80s. While most cancer researchers were treating tumors, Teller focused on prevention. He concluded that plants had developed protective substances against DNA damage over millions of years. He wanted to isolate these. In 1991, he sent a researcher to the market with zero to buy various vegetables. He brought back, among other things, broccoli. In the analysis, they found extremely high amounts of a compound called sulforap. It activates the body's own phase 2 detoxification enzymes, those molecules that neutralize carcinogenic chemicals before they can damage DNA. In 1994, his colleague Jet Fahy did something that no one had thought of before. He analyzed broccoli sprouts and microgreens instead of the mature plant. What he found has held up to this day in cancer research. 3-day-old broccoli sprouts consistently contain 20 to 50 times more sulforaphane than mature broccoli heads. 20 to 50 times more in a tiny sprout that you can grow on your kitchen counter in a week. This is a discovery that can change our lives. Fahy fed extracts of these sprouts to rats and exposed them to carcinogens. The rats given the extract developed fewer and smaller tumors. Later studies in China showed that sulforaphane from broccoli sprouts increased the excretion of benzene, a carcinogen from tobacco smoke, by up to 61%. The research has expanded to autism, schizophrenia, diabetes, and liver protection. Telly said microgreens could be an easier way to chemically lower cancer risk. A simple way for a few cents. This finding was published in 1997, almost 3 decades ago. A team at one of the world's most prestigious clinics discovered that a plant from a shoebox contains one of the world's strongest protective compounds. And yet, go to a supermarket today and count how many people buy broccoli microgreens. I promise you, you won't need 2 hands for that. Instead, we find aisles full of processed foods and pills, while fresh vegetables have often traveled 100 miles and lost nutrients along the way. Why is that? The answer is not a secret conspiracy. I found out that the oppression is structural, economic, and cultural, and that makes it even worse. Our first problem. Microgreens don't look like food to many of us. We were trained from childhood to think that agriculture means acres and huge tractors. A plant that is harvested at 3 centimeters height from a plastic tray simply doesn't fit into this model. It doesn't need fertilizers or pesticide products that bring in billions in revenue. Every euro you spend at home on microgreens is a euro that the food industry is missing out on. That's an important point we should remember. Our second problem is that they are too simple. They violate the assumption that food production must be complex. We cannot patent radish seeds. We can't build a subscription model around a paper towel and tap water. We can't build a billion-dollar logistics network for something that grows faster than an Amazon package is delivered. Simplicity is the threat here. When food costs almost nothing and grows in days, the model of industrial agriculture seems absurd. Third problem, perishability. They only last 5 to 10 days when refrigerated. You can't ship them globally like frozen meat. The model of modern food depends on its storability. A food that is best eaten on the day it is harvested favors the grower over the corporation. This is the same pattern we see with mushrooms or water lentils. The system does not have to actively fight it. It simply ignores what it can't profit from. And we consumers never learn what is being withheld from us. Consider this bill that I am now presenting to you. An average family spends a lot of money on vegetables that lost nutrients along the way. A single tray of microgreens costs me about 2 euros in seeds and produces more vitamins than a 20 euros bag of store-bought salad. 10 trays per month for 20 euros provide more nutrient concentration than most families consume in a year. The ratio is so extreme that it feels like a mistake, but it's not a mistake. It is the reason why they were never taught. If the bill is so massively in favor of the consumer, no corporation has an interest in making this known, but some refuse to accept this. While researchers were uncovering the mystery, something else was happening 400 kilometers above the Earth. In 2014, NASA installed a small plant chamber called Veggie on the ISS. It was the size of a suitcase. The mission: to grow fresh food in space. Because on a Mars mission, vitamins in canned food lose their value. In 2015, astronauts harvested red romaine lettuce in orbit for the first time. Scott Kelly called it a big leap toward Mars. Since then, they have grown Chinese cabbage, pak choi, and wasabi mustard. They harvested the latter after just 10 days as microgreens. NASA's Joya Massa stated clearly, microgreens have 4 to 10 times the nutrient density of a mature plant. Where every gram counts, they offer the most food per space and time. And here is the connection to their kitchen, which I find particularly exciting. NASA initially provided funding for the LED technology that enables growth. NASA had to grow food in a tin can at 28,000 kilometers per hour, which led to the development of LED lighting that now enable microgreens to thrive globally. Although the technology was created with space in mind, it may also be used in your residence. Isn't that amazing? The hardware store sells the same equipment that keeps astronauts alive for 12 euros. Beside the duct tape on the shelf is something made specifically for Mars. Since nobody makes money from it, no one advised them to use it for food. I'll now discuss the 5-minute setup. I want to warn you before I start that it will sound too simple. You'll think I'm cutting corners. I'm not. The reason it works is that the seed already has everything the plant needs to get going. They don't replenish nutrition. Like with a battery, they simply release them. First and foremost, you need a flat container. For myself, I use an upside-down garbage can lid, a baking dish, or a takeout box with holes. 5 centimeters is more than sufficient. Second, a basis rather than soil. Although a hemp mat is clean, I've discovered that corrugated cardboard or folded paper towels also work really well. All that is required of the substrate is moisture retention. Thirdly, seeds. Many dishes can be filled with cheap broccoli seeds. The fastest are radishes. It's ready in 7 days and has my favorite spicy crunch. Sunflowers have a nutty flavor. Purchase seeds designed for sprouting or microgreens. Water comes in fourth. Tap water that has been filtered is excellent. Light comes in fifth. Direct sunshine is not necessary for microgreens. Any kind of light will do. A bright desk lamp or an LED workshop lamp. Let's move on to the method I myself employ. The substrate should be soaked until it is damp but not leaking. Unlike in a garden, distribute the seeds widely throughout the surface. Here, density is your ally. Water should be sprayed on the seeds. Now cover everything with a black cloth or a second tray. This is the 3 to 5 day blackout period. This is how the seedlings reach for the light. Every day, spray them. They are pale yellow after 5 days. That's typical. Put them in the light now. The miracle occurs in less than 48 hours. They become vivid green. Chlorophyll becomes active. The process of photosynthesis starts. Water for an additional 4 to 7 days. Take a pair of scissors and cut above the substrate once the first seed leaves are completely unfolded. Store them in the refrigerator or eat them immediately. You will feel deceived, I assure you. A plate full of life that didn't exist 10 days ago is what you are looking at. It will be confirmed by the flavor. No supermarket can match the intensity of fresh microgreens. That's 10 times the difference between trucked and garden tomatoes. I have experienced that. It takes 7 to 14 days to complete. About 150 g are produced in a bowl. Practically a gift to you, valuable in the store. Just like me, think things through. Every 3 days, 4 bowls are replenished on the shelf. They will start harvesting continually from a shelf in their closet in 2 weeks. If done commercially, a tiny cabinet can provide enough food for €1,000 a month. In garages, some urban growers make 6 figures, but consider their family instead of the money. Any gourmet chef would be jealous of the types of greens they harvest, which are 4 to 40 times more nutrient dense, free of pesticides, and short supply chains. Children adore pea shoots, nutty sunflowers, peppery radishes in 7 days, or broccoli with sulfur leaves. Every plate has the appearance of coming from a Michelin-starred restaurant thanks to Magenta Maranta. According to USDA research, red cabbage microgreens were more successful than the mature vegetable in lowering inflammation and cholesterol in rats. The factor that alters everything is the harvest time. The movement is already expanding. They are being grown in containers in Brooklyn. Vertical farms in Japan operate entirely automatically. Rooftops are used in Singapore. Supply channels collapsed during the 2020 pandemic, hastening this. Without a garden, thousands of people looked for ways to grow food at home. The answer has always been microgreens. I witnessed a global surge in interest. Office workers utilized desk lamps, and neighbors shared seeds. In a laundry room, a Minneapolis teacher cultivated 14 different kinds. One kid in Tokyo had pea shoots all over his hostel floor. Children's relationship with food is permanently altered when they witness food growing in a jar in the kitchen. It is now living and not just a plastic product. Additionally, the $170 billion supplement market is threatened by microgreens. Your body recognizes actual food better than pills, and a handful contains more vitamins than a capsule. I firmly believe that. No land or permission is required for food independence. For the price of a cup of coffee, the world's most nutrient-dense food can be grown anywhere in 10 days. The researchers of the 1990s, the chefs of the 1980s, and the scientists at NASA today are all aware that microgreens are biological technology rather than a fad. A seed is a condensed nutrient library. Every 10 days, the pharmacy renews itself. Everything is prepared. Do you start? That's the only question. Make sure to watch my next video if you thought this one was helpful. Remember to subscribe. Until the next occasion.